I supported my wife's transformation. Then I found out she cheated. I had always believed that everything could be earned through hard work and patience, the kind of quiet, steady grind that builds a life from the ground up. But nothing in my experience had prepared me for the shift that was about to occur, not in my marriage nor in my business, both of which I thought were secure, both of which I believed I had control over. At least I had always kept it that way. You see, my wife, Lily, and I had built our life from scratch, just the two of us, from when we were young. We struggled together, found our footing together. There was never a moment I didn't think we were in this for the long haul. We shared everything, the dreams, the pain, the failures, and the successes. It was always a partnership. That's how I saw it. And I never thought that could change, but it did. Little by little, it began with the gym. At first, I thought nothing of it. She had always been active. But after we moved into our bigger house, after my business really took off and I started making more money than I'd ever dreamed of, I suggested she quit her job, take some time to focus on herself. She'd been so dedicated to the work for years, always keeping things together while I spent late nights on the phone or working through my business plans. She deserved a break. I told her she deserved time to focus on herself, on us. So she did. At first, she took it slow, started going to the gym. The workouts became more intense as the months went on. At first, I didn't think much of it. She had always been beautiful. But as the months passed, I noticed her figure changing, tighter, leaner, more toned. Her confidence grew with it. She smiled more. She seemed more alive. There was something magnetic about her now, but I loved it. I loved watching her take care of herself. It made me proud, so proud of how far we'd come, and even prouder of how she was handling everything. She looked better than she ever had. I thought it was only fair to feel that way, but somewhere along the way, the dynamic shifted, not in ways I could see, but in the way she acted. She seemed more distant, less concerned about what was happening in my day-to-day, less engaged in the conversations that we used to have. Still, I dismissed it. I was busy with the business, trying to grow it. I wanted more for us. I didn't notice the cracks forming until much later, and when I did, it was a moment that changed everything. One morning, I came home from a long meeting, feeling proud of the new deal I'd just closed. I stepped into our house, expecting a quiet evening. Lily had finished working out and was in the kitchen, making dinner. She smiled at me like she always did, but there was something off about her smile, a nervousness that I couldn't place, but I shrugged it off. Things felt normal for a moment. That's when I saw the cleaning lady, Mrs. Simmons, who had been working for us for years, standing near the hallway. Her face looked pale, and there was a hesitation in her step. I didn't think much of it. I greeted her, but she didn't return the smile. She just nodded and left. I didn't know why, but that moment stuck with me. Something wasn't right. As the days went on, I couldn't shake that feeling. My business was doing well, but I was beginning to notice things slipping at home, things that didn't quite add up, like the late nights Lily had started having at the gym, the text messages that she wouldn't let me see, the phone calls she was taking in the other room. I didn't want to believe it. I didn't want to entertain the thought that something could be wrong, but I couldn't ignore it anymore. It all came crashing down the night Mrs. Simmons finally broke her silence. She pulled me aside while I was at my desk one evening. Her voice barely a whisper. She told me that one evening, after a workout, she had caught Lily with someone. She had caught her with him, her fitness trainer, right there in our house. She was paid well to keep quiet, but Mrs. Simmons couldn't hold it in any longer. The words hit me like a cold slap. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. I stood there, frozen, staring at the door to our bedroom where Lily had been just hours earlier. I couldn't believe it. Not here, not in this house, not with him. The man she'd been spending hours with at the gym, the one who had her attention when I didn't, the one who had broken her heart, all while I had been working tirelessly to provide everything we had, everything we dreamed of. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to react, so I did what anyone would do. I went away. I couldn't stay, couldn't face her, so I booked a flight, left for a week, went somewhere quiet, and let the weight of everything settle on me. I didn't pick up her calls. She tried every half hour to reach me, but I couldn't speak to her, not after everything. I drank to numb the pain, to drown the rage, but it didn't work. I could feel my world unraveling, and I had no idea what to do next, but I knew I would make her pay. I would make her lose everything she thought she could take from me. I couldn't trust her anymore, not with my heart, not with my life. And when I returned, I was different, colder, harder, and I had a plan that would leave her with nothing when everything came crashing down, and I was going to make sure she didn't get away with this. When I got back, everything felt different, colder, like the warmth had been sucked out of the air in our home. Lily's calls had stopped after I ignored them for days. She had tried. I couldn't deny that. But the thought of hearing her voice made my skin crawl. I had to think. Had to plan what came next. I knew there was no going back, no pretending like everything was okay. Not after what had happened. The trust had been shattered beyond repair. What she had done wasn't just a mistake. It was a betrayal that cut deeper than anything I had ever felt before. It wasn't just about her sleeping with someone else. It was about the lies, the way she had acted, the way she had deceived me, used me as her safety net while she sought out someone else's approval. All while I was out there working to give her the life she wanted, the life she pretended to appreciate. I had to make her see that she couldn't just walk away from this unscathed. I wasn't going to let her have the last word. I wasn't going to let her keep everything I had worked so hard for. She had no idea what I was capable of when I was backed into a corner. I stayed quiet, didn't reach out to her, didn't tell her I was back. And when she finally showed up at the house a couple of days later, she looked almost like she expected me to forgive her, like she thought I'd just let it go. But I didn't. Not this time. Not after everything. She stood there in the doorway, looking nervous, her hair pulled back in that perfect way she knew I liked, her eyes trying to read me. But I wasn't giving her anything. I wasn't going to let her see my pain. I wasn't going to let her see how much I was hurting. I was done with the tears, done with the broken promises. I could feel the weight of the entire situation pressing down on me. I could see the guilt in her eyes, but I wasn't about to play the game of pretending everything was fine. I told her I needed space. I wasn't ready to talk, not yet. But the truth was, I was already planning my next steps. I was already calculating what I could do, what I would do. To make sure that she didn't walk away with a single thing, I'd spoken to my lawyer, explained the situation, told him everything that had happened, told him about the affair, about the betrayal, and we started working on a plan, a legal strategy to ensure that I would have control of everything, that Lily wouldn't be able to take anything from me, not a single thing. It wasn't just about money. It was about power, about making sure she understood that she couldn't hurt me like this and just walk away without consequences. I wasn't going to let her keep the house, the assets, the business, not after what she had done. I knew she was going to fight. I knew she wouldn't just roll over and accept it. But I had a plan, and I was going to see it through. We met with the lawyer a couple of times over the next week, put everything in motion, and as I sat there listening to him lay out the legal steps, I couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction. This was it. The moment I had been waiting for. The moment I was going to take back control. I was going to make sure she paid for what she had done, not just emotionally, but financially too. I had the power now, and she was going to see what it meant to cross me, to betray me like that. She had no idea what was coming, and I wasn't about to show her mercy. I was done with mercy, done with forgiveness, done with the person I had been. This wasn't the man I was anymore. This was a man who had been hurt, and this man was going to make sure that his pain would be heard, and that it would cost her everything. The days after that settled into a strange rhythm. The house felt too big for two people pretending nothing was wrong. Lily moved quietly like someone afraid to make noise, afraid to remind me she was still there. She tried to talk a few times, soft, careful words about misunderstandings, about stress, about mistakes. I listened without reacting, not because I believed her, but because I needed her calm. I needed her thinking there was still hope. My lawyer had warned me about that. Emotions ruin timing. He said, let her believe you are still deciding. Let her feel safe enough to stay exactly where she is. So I did. I stayed controlled, distant but not explosive. I slept in the guest room, said it was because my head was a mess, which was true, just not in the way she thought. Every night I lay there staring at the ceiling, replaying everything. The gym clothes neatly folded, the sudden obsession with mirrors, the new confidence that had once excited me and now made my stomach turn. I thought about how blind I had been, how proud I felt walking beside her when people looked twice, how I told myself I had won at life, successful business, beautiful wife, perfect home. It all felt like a joke now, a stage set that collapsed the moment I stepped behind it. Lily started leaving the house more often, said she needed air, said she needed to think. I let her go. I tracked everything quietly, receipts, schedules, shared calendars, things she never thought I would care about. Every detail mattered now, not for jealousy, but for leverage. My lawyer guided me step by step, separating emotions from actions, turning chaos into structure. He explained how timing mattered more than anger, how evidence mattered more than confrontation, how silence could be more dangerous than shouting. I listened carefully, followed instructions exactly. Meanwhile, Lily grew restless. She could feel the shift, even if she did not understand it. She asked if I was seeing someone else. I almost laughed. Instead, I shook my head and said nothing. That silence hurt her more than any accusation. She tried harder after that, cooked dinners I barely touched, wore clothes she knew I liked, brought up old memories like shared vacations and inside jokes. It was strange watching someone try to rebuild something they had already burned down. Part of me felt pity. Another part felt nothing at all. The man who once would have softened was gone, replaced by someone quieter, sharper, more deliberate. One afternoon, the cleaning lady returned. She avoided Lily completely and spoke only to me. She apologized again, said she wished she had told me sooner. I thanked her and told her she did the right thing. That was when I realized something important. Lily still thought the cleaning lady had stayed quiet for good. She still believed she had buried the truth with money. That belief made her careless, and carelessness creates opportunity. The more time passed, the more confident Lily became that I would not act. She started talking about counseling, about fresh starts, about how people make mistakes and move on. I nodded when appropriate, stayed neutral when necessary. All the while, the paperwork moved forward quietly in the background. Documents changed structures, shifted ownership, clarified timelines, locked into place. None of it dramatic, none of it loud. Just precise, irreversible movement. I stopped drinking around that time. Not because the pain was gone, but because I needed my mind clear. Revenge requires patience, not impulse. And patience was something I had learned while building my business. Lily underestimated that, she thought. Success had made me soft, comfortable, distracted. She never understood that discipline was the reason for everything we had. And now that same discipline was being turned against her. I began to see the end forming, not as an explosion, but as a quiet door closing. She would not see it until it was too late. And that thought kept me steady through the nights, calm through the days, waiting, preparing, watching her walk freely through a house that was no longer hers in any way that truly mattered. By the fourth week, everything felt suspended in place, like the moment before a storm finally breaks. Lily began acting more confident again, as if my silence meant forgiveness was coming. She talked about future plans, casually dropping words like vacation, renovation, starting fresh. I let her talk, nodded when needed, stayed distant enough to feel unresolved, but close enough to feel hopeful. My lawyer called it controlled ambiguity. People reveal more when they believe the danger has passed. And Lily revealed plenty. She stopped hiding her phone, as carefully left it on the counter, screen down, assumed I would not look. She underestimated how much attention I paid now, not to messages themselves, but to patterns, timing, habits, changes in behavior. Everything told a story if you watched long enough. She still went to the gym almost every day, always during the same hours, always coming home energized but distracted. I did not follow her, I did not confront her, I did not need to. What mattered was no longer emotion, but positioning. Meanwhile, my business continued to grow quietly. Contracts finalized, accounts expanded, investments structured in ways that looked ordinary on the surface, but were anything but simple underneath. My lawyer coordinated with my accountant, every move documented, every decision justified long before questions could be asked. The goal was simple: make everything traceable to my effort, my risk, my responsibility. Lily believed the house, the lifestyle, the security were permanent fixtures tied to marriage alone. She never asked how they were held together, never asked whose name was where. She trusted comfort without understanding its foundation. One evening, she tried to force a conversation, said she could not live in uncertainty, said she needed to know where we stood. I told her I was still processing, still hurt, still deciding. All of that was true, just not in the way she thought. She cried that night quietly in the bedroom, door closed, lights off. I listened from the hallway and felt nothing except confirmation that emotions cloud judgment. The next morning, she was affectionate again, as if tears had reset everything. I responded politely, warmly enough to keep balance intact. The cleaning lady later told me Lily had asked again if she had said anything to me months ago. Asked nervously, offered more money, just in case. That confirmed what I already knew. Lily believed secrets could be managed like expenses, paid and forgotten. That belief made her reckless. She began talking about divorce herself, framing it as mutual, as healthy, as a new chapter. I did not argue. I said if that is what she wanted, we could discuss it calmly when the time was right. That answer reassured her more than anger ever could. She began planning her exit mentally before realizing she had nowhere to land. The trainer disappeared from her stories, stopped being mentioned entirely, replaced by vague comments about independence and self-respect. She was already rewriting the narrative in her head, painting herself as someone who outgrew her marriage, not someone who destroyed it. Watching that transformation was unsettling. How easily people justify themselves when consequences feel distant. My lawyer told me we were nearly ready, just a few final steps needed to be completed quietly. Timing was everything. One wrong move could undo months of preparation. I felt strangely calm during that period, almost detached, as if I were watching someone else's life unfold. The man who once rushed home excited to share wins now stayed late, by choice, using work as both shield and weapon. Lily interpreted that as distance, exhaustion, emotional withdrawal. She never imagined it as strategy. That ignorance was her greatest mistake. One night, she asked me directly if I still loved her. The question caught me off guard, not because it hurt, but because it revealed how unaware she was. I told her love does not disappear overnight, it changes shape when trust is broken. That answer satisfied her enough to stop pressing. And that was the moment I realized she truly believed she was still in control. That belief was the final piece I needed. Because when people feel safe, they stop protecting themselves. And I knew now that when everything finally moved, she would not see it coming at all. The shift happened quietly, the way most real endings begin, not with shouting or slammed doors, but with paperwork, signatures, and silence. Lily sensed something changing even if she could not name it. She became more attentive, more cautious, choosing words carefully, watching my reactions for clues. I stayed consistent, calm, predictable, never giving her anything solid to react to. My lawyer said consistency builds credibility later. Emotions leave fingerprints. Discipline leaves clean lines. I followed that advice the same way. I followed routines that built my business, step by step, without drama. One afternoon, Lily suggested we open a shared account again, said it would help us rebuild trust. I declined politely, said it was not the right time. That moment planted the first real doubt in her. I could see it in her eyes, the realization that access was not guaranteed. Still she smiled, still she nodded, still she pretended everything was reasonable. But her behavior shifted after that. She began asking indirect questions about finances, about the company, about long-term plans. I answered honestly, but selectively, sticking to surface-level facts, never revealing structure or control. She assumed complexity meant shared ownership. She was wrong. The house felt tense now, like a place waiting for something to happen. Even the air seemed heavier. I noticed Lily spending more time online, researching vague topics about independence, about divorce, about starting over. She never asked me directly, but her questions came in sideways, comments about fairness and effort and sacrifice. I listened without correcting her assumptions. People reveal their expectations when they speak freely. My lawyer finalized the last adjustments and told me everything was ready when I decided to move forward. That night, I slept better than I had in months, not because the pain was gone, but because uncertainty was ending. Lily noticed the change in me, the steadiness, the clarity. She mistook it for acceptance. She suggested dinner out, said we needed a reset. I agreed, knowing this would likely be the last normal moment we would share. Over dinner, she spoke confidently about her growth, about how people evolve, how sometimes love changes direction. She framed everything carefully, as if rehearsed. I listened quietly and realized she had already forgiven herself completely. She talked about the future as if it were already detached from consequences. When she asked how I felt, I told her I believed in accountability and responsibility, and that silence followed. Back home, she tried to be affectionate again, reaching for familiarity as proof of security. I gently stepped away, said I was tired, said tomorrow would be a long day. That night, she barely slept. I could tell from the way she moved restlessly beside me. The next morning, she was unusually cheerful, overly light, making plans, talking fast. Anxiety often disguises itself as optimism. I left early that day and went straight to my lawyer's office, signed the final documents calmly without hesitation. It felt less like revenge and more like closure. Everything was aligned: timing, structure, evidence, intention. There would be no dramatic reveal, no confrontation fueled by anger, only facts delivered cleanly and legally. On my way home, Lily called repeatedly, asking where I was, her voice tight, controlled. I let it ring until it stopped. When I arrived, she was waiting, pacing the living room, sensing something irreversible had begun. She asked what was going on. I told her we needed to talk, and for the first time in months, she looked truly afraid. Not of losing me, but of losing certainty. And that was when I knew the balance had shifted completely, even if she did not yet understand how much of her world was already gone. I did not raise my voice when we sat down. There was no anger left in me, only clarity. Lily watched my face closely, searching for signs of forgiveness or rage, and finding neither unsettled her more than either would have. I told her I had spoken to a lawyer weeks ago, not recently, not impulsively, but carefully. I explained that I knew about the affair and how I knew. Her face drained of color when I mentioned the cleaning lady. Her mouth opened, as if to deny it, then closed again when she realized lies were pointless now. She tried to speak over me, tried to explain, tried to reshape the story into something softer, something forgivable. I stopped her calmly and told her this conversation was not about emotions, it was about consequences. That word changed everything. She leaned back, confused, as if hearing it for the first time. I explained that while she believed she was rebuilding herself, she had slowly removed herself from the foundation of our life. She had stepped away from work, from involvement, from responsibility, all by choice and with my support. I reminded her that support was not the same as surrender. She argued that the house, the lifestyle, the business were shared because marriage meant partnership. I nodded and said partnership requires loyalty, transparency, and contribution. Silence filled the room, heavy and unavoidable. I told her the divorce would proceed without conflict if she cooperated. That shocked her more than threats ever could. She expected a fight, expected shouting, accusations, bargaining. Instead, she was being offered terms without emotion. She asked what those terms were, and that was when fear finally surfaced fully. I told her she would keep her personal belongings, her car, and enough money to restart her life comfortably, but nothing tied to the business, nothing tied to the house, nothing tied to future earnings. She laughed once sharply out of disbelief, then stopped when she saw I was serious. She accused me of planning this, of tricking her, of pretending to forgive her while preparing to destroy her. I did not deny it. I told her planning is not cruelty, it is responsibility. Her voice rose then broke as she realized anger would not change structure. She asked if there was anything she could do to fix this, counseling, time, forgiveness. I told her forgiveness and reconciliation are different things, and one does not cancel consequences. She cried openly, then not quietly like before, but desperately. I felt no satisfaction watching it, only finality. She asked how long I had known. I told her long enough to make sure emotions would not guide my decisions. That answer hurt her more than the affair had hurt me, because it meant she had lost leverage long ago. She tried to remind me of our history, our early struggles, the years we supported each other. I acknowledged them, and said those years were exactly why I refused to turn this into chaos. I wanted closure, not destruction. The word closure seemed to confuse her. She had expected punishment, not boundaries. When she realized there would be no dramatic collapse, no screaming, no public humiliation, only a clean exit, she began to understand how complete her loss was. I stood up, told her my lawyer would contact her lawyer, and that I would be staying elsewhere until everything was finalized. As I walked away, she asked if I ever loved her. I paused long enough to answer honestly, and said yes. And that was why I would not lie to her now. Love had ended the moment trust did, and nothing she said could rebuild what she had chosen to break. When I closed the door behind me, I felt lighter, not because I had won, but because I had stopped carrying something that was never meant to be repaired. The weeks that followed were calm in a way I had not felt in years. Not empty, not lonely, just clear. The divorce moved forward exactly as planned, without surprises, without fights, without public scenes. Lily tried once more through her lawyer to renegotiate, to appeal, to fairness, to history, to emotion. None of it changed the structure already in place. Agreements were signed, assets divided cleanly, and when it ended quietly, like a door closing instead of a wall collapsing. I moved into a temporary apartment overlooking the city where my business had grown piece by piece. Mornings were quiet, evenings were quieter, and for the first time silence did not feel threatening. It felt honest. I returned fully to work, not to escape, but to rebuild rhythm. Success came steadily the way it always had when distractions were removed. I heard through mutual acquaintances that Lily struggled at first, not financially, but emotionally. She had believed reinvention guaranteed happiness, and discovered too late that discipline matters more than appearance. She tried to stay in the version of life she had grown used to, and found it required foundations she no longer had. I did not feel joy hearing that, only distance. I wished her stability, not redemption, not reunion, just balance. People asked if I regretted how everything ended, if I wished I had confronted her sooner or fought harder for the marriage. I told them regret belongs to moments where action was avoided. I acted carefully, deliberately, and without cruelty. Time passed, and the story became something I carried less often. Not because it faded, but because it stopped weighing me down. I learned something important through all of it. Success does not protect you from betrayal, but discipline protects you from collapse. Love is not proven through tolerance of disrespect, but through boundaries that preserve self-respect. The gym, the house, the money, none of those caused what happened. Choices did, and choices always have consequences, even when they arrive quietly. One evening months later, I returned to the old house to collect the last remaining items stored in the garage. The space felt smaller than I remembered, stripped of meaning. I closed the door without hesitation and drove away, knowing I would never return. Some endings are loud, others are clean. This one gave me back control of my life, and more importantly, control of myself. And that was worth more than anything I lost along the way.